So instead of saying insurance covers 8 visits or $800, you're going to say your insurance contributes. So they're not going to contribute a visit number. You're giving the visits. They contribute a dollar amount.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for showing up here today. I'm very excited. Of course, we've got Dr. Josh Wagner here, who's going to be sharing some really cool, I think one is just some tips, some things you can do to start, obviously, making a change, adding more revenue to your practice. But for those of you who don't know, maybe they didn't see the last video that Josh and I did, also introduce a lot of other interesting concepts, which I think are really actually the big thing. In fact, give me 1 second. I will also give a little plug here, here for Josh's book. Thank you for sending this to me, Josh. And really touch more on, I don't like to say mindset, but just really some of the things that really get in people's way that they don't know is getting in their way. They never give it the kind of credit that it is actually due. And if you look at the types of things where it's like, hey, 80% of these things are keeping you from getting where you want to be. So you're going super slow, or maybe you're just running up against the same obstacles. I feel like Josh has a great, maybe very simple, elegant, smooth way of, I wouldn't even say powering through those things, efficiently navigating them. So with that, Josh, you've got slides. I'll just kind of turn it over to you. Hopefully that's enough of an introduction to kind of get the juices flowing here, and off we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sam, thank you for all you do, for hosting me. For those watching live or in a future recording, definitely have a piece of paper, something to be able to take notes. If you have questions during this, drop it into the chat. I don't know if we'll have time because I got a lot and we started late. What we spoke about on the podcast that you were referring to opened up the notions of lots of the paradigms that chiropractors live in, either grandfathered in from our profession and a lot of old ways of thinking or ways of thinking that cater to different errors in our profession, ERA errors, like the insurance model, that don't necessarily stand true now, or have docs doing things they don't necessarily want to do. So Sam, that was the first time I think you heard me share about that, and you realized, wow, this guy's like really talking about things that not everyone's talking about, and is behind the scenes of what sabotages a lot of good chiropractors from having the practice you want. What I'm going to share here is, rather than just talk about what doesn't work and what makes it harder for chiropractors, are the actual shifts you absolutely need to start making in your headspace, and then pieces of the actual puzzle. I can't do it in 40 minutes, of going from most likely being stuck at a certain practice level, collections, profits, maybe you do it by volume, new patients, and certain paradigms that you have to shift in your head without hiring more team, throwing a lot more towards marketing, working on Saturdays. And there's nothing wrong with more team, more marketing, or if you choose to work on Saturdays, but without getting to adding, let's say, more heaviness or more plates spinning. And after working with chiropractors now for 8 years, it is so fundamentally obvious what are 3 of the biggest stuck points and shifts that keep most good chiropractors, really good chiropractors, under that 40,000 a month collections level, and way too many chiropractors around the 20,000 a month. And when you think about, I don't know where you are listening to this, but start with this: write down what your average collections are, and probably they've been that way for a while. And when you really factor in your business overhead, taxes, for chiropractors bringing in around that 20,000 a month or 30,000 a month, below that 40, there's no chance, after business overhead, after expenses, or after taxes, and hopefully knocking out student loans, saving for the future, being smart and diligent, that you're oftentimes getting the lifestyle you deserve for your family, assuming you have spouse, children, from a place of equal compensation for the difference you're making in so many people's lives. And that's something that I fight for with our profession and for our colleagues, is that you should have an amazing life for the ridiculously valuable service you're giving day in and day out by helping other people get back to their life. And that's just law of exchange, karma. Like, so many chiropractors are stuck or in fear mode of no idea how they can retire, even though they're giving great service, giving great care, getting great results, but stuck in old paradigms that uh, don't work for having more prosperity. So some of these are going to be, I'm going to share three of the biggest shifts that a chiropractor needs to make. Two of them are specifically for our profession, and the third can apply anywhere in your life. It's based on the book Sam just held up. It's whether you're trying to lose 20 pounds, or it could be in your relationships, it could be in your practice, but it's a universal growth and success principle. So Sam, you cool if I share my screen? Open up the
Absolutely.
book.
I'm excited. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. All right, you guys are on my slides, right?
Yep, we got them.
All right. So everything we're talking about right now, first three must-use strategies. This is the first things I teach every doc that I start working with, to add 20,000 a month to your collections without more team, without more marketing, without adding more days to your schedule. And more importantly now than ever, I was just speaking to clients this morning about the recession-proof your practice understanding. Because if you're a normal chiropractor, you're probably having the seeds start to develop in your mind of, hey, is 2023 going to be tougher? Is it going to be like when COVID hit again, but from a different paradigm? Because recession, inflation, markets down, all of that stuff that, you know, the news, the naysayers, um, as humans, we're prone to fears and anxieties. And when you get back to the fundamentals, the foundations, the principles of what work in business and practice, you will weather the storm. But if you go into fear mode and you start chasing the shiny objects, when COVID hit, you saw the shiny objects. It was, you've got to shift to telehealth. If you made that shift, I don't know, maybe working at Home Depot right now. But if you weather the storm and you stuck to the foundations and principles, like every client I worked with had their best year in 2020 and a better year in 2021, even though those first few weeks and months, March and April of 2020, yeah, they took a hit, depending on their state, depending on their country, of what they could or couldn't do, and just the general understanding of the public. Not as many people wanting to leave their house, or definitely be in physical proximity. Everyone's viewpoint is different, but that was what was happening. So anchoring to what I'm about to share with you, these three strategies, all from a place of owning what works and not being in fear mode and chasing shiny objects. Now, if you're not familiar with me, if you haven't seen videos I share online, my practically daily emails that I share, the entire purpose of what I teach in patient mastery is my community of chiropractors who are committed to delivering an exceptional patient experience. Everything we do is to increase the world's value of chiropractic without feeling like a salesperson, without chasing insurance dollars or services that you don't believe in, and what I call helping the good guys win in practice. Now, what I interpret that meaning is that chiropractors who truly care about getting more people well, being a pillar of leadership, trust, integrity in their communities for healthcare, especially natural healthcare, and doing it the right way. And too much of our profession has gotten to this fear mode of, I can't be honest with my recommendations. I can't give the care I want to care. Otherwise, I won't make enough to support my family, knock out my student loans, and be able to retire. So I've got to add services that I'm not really sure about, that insurance pays a lot for, or just, again, chasing shiny objects. And when you realize you don't have to do that, you don't have to compromise your values, you don't have to be inauthentic or say things that don't make you feel right with patients, and make the money you want to make. Patient mastery isn't everyone is $1 million practice. It's how do you get to your next level that makes you feel great about being in practice and gives you the lifestyle you want? And everyone's different, but I just love helping the good guys win in practice. What we promise is you become the go-to chiropractor in your area, both in your mind, for your team, for your patients, and for your community. You have more time off and you have financial freedom. If you're on this live, I always like asking, because when new docs come into the program, I always ask which one of these is most valuable to you, like which one grabs you the most. And there's no right answer. It's all across the board and depending on what you have already and the trajectory of your career. But if you're on this live, I'd love to see if you throw in one, two, or three in the chat box. It's always fun to see. So
Yeah,
become
that'd be
a
awesome.
chiropractor, more time off, financial freedom. Of course, they're all awesome, but does one grab you the most?
It's funny because
Yeah.
like even my own thing, it's like the go-to marketing agency, more time off, financial freedom. Man,
Yeah.
it's hard to beat that financial freedom one. I mean, the go-to agency and the go-to person precedes the latter, I believe. But there
Yeah.
is
Like
a
a little more
peace of
propelled.
mind that
Yeah.
comes with conducting your, like when you don't have to worry about money, then you can just always do the right thing.
Yeah.
And not to say that you can't if you don't have the money.
Yeah. And they all
Man, it makes it
interrelate.
easier.
And hey, there's no right answer.
Right.
But yeah,
Agreed.
in your field, Sam, like agencies deal with a lot of the same issues as chiropractors of there's many to choose from. Everyone has a different experience with each one. Um, there's a different trust factor compared to
Yeah.
like, oh, I need an accountant or a lawyer. It's like, is this
Right.
gonna work?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, so I know you can relate on that level.
Absolutely.
So before I get into the three key switches, the three strategies that you have to own and implement in practice. Um, this is an overview of understanding that you've got to have a process when it comes to your practice and especially the new patient experience. So in patient mastery, we start off teaching every doc both the headspace and the communication tools so you first own you being the go-to chiropractor in your area. If you don't own it in your head and your communication, your team's not going to see it. Your new patients meeting you aren't going to see it. And then it's not going to be displayed online or through word of mouth or through whatever marketing you put out there or just literally energetically. We start by teaching that through a 6-question consult that will literally have patients wanting you to find what you're looking for on your exam rather than the age old, like, oh, I hope you don't find subluxation or I hope you don't find the cancer of the spine. Like they want you to find it so you can be their chiropractor. And literally you will get referrals just after a conversation without even actually putting your hands on them or them starting to get better and without asking for referrals. It's that powerful because you are the trusted leader. Obviously from there you have to have a recommendations conversation no matter what your recommendations are, whether it's 3 visits or you're going to recommend 30 years of care. I'm joking, but like what goes on in this field. You have to have a recommendations conversation that is simple, trustworthy, leader like, and that you'd be happy if your own mother went through. That's what we promise in patient mastery. Obviously having expert care plans. Again, doesn't matter if you're recommending 3 visits, 3 months, or 35 years of care, we will show you what works for you rather than everyone gets a cookie cutter model. It works for cash or insurance, or if a mix. That's the new patient experience. They have to understand, or this is for them to get on board with following your recommendations and paying for them. Now, from there, the next hurdle is they come to the end of their initial recommendations and maybe they're 100% better, maybe they're 80% better, maybe they're 50% better. But a conversation for continuation, so long as it's in their best interest, that is evolved compared to the current paradigms in our profession, which is more of selling the invisible or selling what people thought they already got. So, for instance, maintenance is trying to sell people on you got to keep paying for what you thought you already got once. Selling the invisible is protection, prevention, and wellness. Do they have merits? Of course, from a evolved chiropractor's headspace. From a layperson, now more than ever, people don't want to buy the invisible. They want what's next and better results. So we show you how to change that conversation. And then if you're stuck in insurance contracts that you realize the compensation you're getting and the notes you have to write on weekends and in between patients isn't worth it, how to transition those insurance relationships and patients to cash. And And then, of course, there's countless pillars of having a successful and growing practice. So there's new patient attraction, there's referrals increase without asking, there's reactivations formula. So past patients who still live in your area but don't have an active appointment on the books. And then my favorite is the wealth booster of, as your collections and profits increase, how to responsibly handle every dollar that comes in, not falling into the trap of most business owners of, as collections increase, your expenses increase, and then you still have the same leftover at the end of the month, and it's not enough for retirement and knocking out student loans. Full support the whole way, CA and associate hiring and training support, active community for colleagues in the CA community. Every single week and month, we have special experts and members sharing what's working best in their practice for you to copy, and 4 weekly group coaching calls with me and other awesome docs and leaders. You get a DC tribe and one-to-one. So that's an understanding of, you've got to have a process in your practice for new patients, and you've got to have a process rather than thinking you're going to do it all on your own and hoping just time or next year is going to magically change things because you've been in your community longer. Like, don't bank on SEO and just word of mouth to be the only aspects of growing your practice. And it truly is. Patient mastery, it's a proven process for increasing collections faster and being the go-to DC. So let's jump into the first must-do strategy, and it's in the realm of conversion. So conversion means a new patient comes in who's not actively receiving your care. It's first visit. And conversion means them following your care recommendations. Now, a lot of what I teach has to have caveats, because immediately, if I say care recommendations or care plan, you may be thinking, ooh, I learned care plans and recommendations from someone 5 years ago, and I hated doing it. It felt awful, so I never want to go there again. And you've got to realize there's a whole spectrum between being taught to say things and recommend things to patients that you don't like saying and don't like recommending and don't believe in and just doesn't feel right. There's that end of the spectrum, which happens too much in their profession. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is, I'm just going to wing it, or I'm going to go, let's just go visit to visit and see how it goes approach, like the total opposite of a really heavy, strong, overbearing care plan. What we show you is that sweet spot in the middle, which still isn't cookie cutter for every patient, because every patient comes in with different needs, history, presentation, and goals, showing you how to create care plans. And just write this down, just understand this. You can have a few different care plans that cater to your most common patient presentations. You can have care plans catered to specific conditions that patient's showing up with. You can have multiple care variations based on a condition, just based on, is it acute, chronic, what are the cofactors involved with it? The bottom line is, it's got to be unique to that patient. The days of everyone gets the same thing, people are wary of that, and they're already coming in a stressed state. That's why they're showing up to your practice, because they've got a health concern or pain. They've already got preconceived notions of, as a chiropractor, like, how's this going to go? And they've probably already been to a past chiropractor. Unlike in the 80s and 90s, it was most new patients' first time to a chiropractor. Now they've been to past chiropractors, and if you're saying something that's very different than theirs, now they're thinking, well, who was right? So because no two chiropractors practice exactly the same, you've got to come with a level of certainty, leadership, honesty, authenticity, and a process that makes people feel great about choosing you. So when it comes to conversion, first thing I want you to write down, you have to quit trying to sell your chiropractic care. And you may be doing other modalities. You may be decompression or laser focused or weight loss. All of that is the same thing. Cross out the word chiropractic and it's your care or your service. And you've got to switch the headspace first to start getting paid for getting patients their life back, no matter what your recommendations are, no matter what your technique is, no matter what your modalities are. it doesn't matter. And our profession has instilled from the beginning, but more so from the 70s and 80s when chiropractic practice management came about in direct correlation with insurance benefits for chiropractic. And it's all been about how do we get patients to buy our care? And it sabotages us now because it's a different world, it's a different patient mentality, and no one wants chiropractic care. They want the results.
That's right.
You can get them. And I'll tell you also, and we'll go into it, you don't have to guarantee results either, because that gets in chiropractors' minds. Because if you're being honest, you can have all the confidence in the world, but you can't guarantee the results with our type of care. I mean, certain conditions, but you can't really guarantee. The thing is, people don't need a guarantee to happily pay out of pocket for your care. So when you're trying to
Can I add? I'm
yeah,
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I know we're on borrowed time here as far as like time left, but I think I just wanted to add one layer of color onto that,
yeah,
right? Because what you're saying is just it's a communication technique in selling, but really it's in caring, right? And I say commonly this one phrase, I love it. And it's the nuance between what you're saying, and which is people don't buy when they understand.
mm,
They buy when they feel understood, right? And if you look at your last slide where it's like people don't buy chiropractic, they buy they want their life back. If you're watching this, just think, close your eyes and observe a conversation that you've had in the past when you were selling chiropractic care. And then observe a consultation you were having when you were helping somebody navigate from where they're at now to where they want to be. The way, like the dynamics of that conversation, just that is the distinction here. And I think it's a big thing because it seems like this seems like such a vanilla. I don't mean this as a pejorative in any way, but it seems like such a innocuous slide. It is like everything.
there are so many layers to this onion, and of course
Yes.
it comes
So
down to everything first starts in your head.
yes.
If you feel like you're selling chiropractic, immediately you see a new patient on the books, and this happens to too many good chiropractors, and there's already an overwhelm, a pit in your stomach of, I've got to close this patient, I've got to sell this
Yeah.
patient, I've got to convince this patient, I've got to educate this patient, I got to get them to become a chiropractic advocate. And it's like, one, that's pushing a boulder uphill. Two, people aren't even in a place for that. It never happened that way. It just was because insurance pretty much paid for everything. We thought education worked, but I'll get to that in strategy too.
Sure.
But here's, like, you could probably see yourself when you're trying to think of care protocols and your fees. We've been taught in chiropractic the wrong way to charge for care, and it's all about, okay, you want to make how much, let's say on average per case? Well, how many visits do you fit into a plan? And then how many not reactivations, re-exams can you throw in, or re-x-rays to add more value, which ups the case fee? And we're coming from the completely wrong paradigm of all of these services, or let's say commodities or widgets. Like a re-exam is a widget in the patient's mind. They don't care about the results of the re-exam if they're not feeling better and they're not back to their life. Whether it's, they don't care at all. They care about getting back to their life. And so many chiropractors are taught, or just based on your old college try, like, oh, this is what my mentor did, or this is what I see the other chiropractors in my neighborhood charging. So I'm going to go through that method, but with my technique and what I feel the person needs in number of visits, and then build out this care plan that hopefully makes sense to them, hopefully they agree with, and hopefully they choose to pay for. And you already lost the game when you start thinking about your fees based on colleagues, your mentor, what insurance reimburses for that service. But you think if you're cash, you still got to be in the same realm of what insurance reimburses when you don't. So we're going to shift that. And truly, this is the biggest game changer for chiropractors' financial freedom and security, is giving people the opportunity to pay to get their life back rather than trying to sell chiropractic by the visit or chiropractic by the care plan, or chiropractic by the membership, or choose your model. It doesn't matter. If you're trying to get people to buy your services, you've already lost the game. And I'll turn the knife a little more in realizing that you probably get chiropractic care regularly, or if not, when you feel you need it. And I bet you don't pay for it. And now think about it. You're a chiropractor, you love chiropractic, and you understand it, and you don't pay for it. And now you're trying to get people off the street who have been indoctrinated with medicine, pharmaceutical commercials, how healthcare works outside of natural healthcare, and you're trying to get them to pay for something that, like, how many years did it take for you to own chiropractic, and how many DE seminars did you go to, and 4 years of grad school? And now you're asking people on day one or day two to see that value in chiropractic. That's why it feels like we're banging our head against the wall, as doctors, as chiropractors. And when you make this subtle switch in your brain, you use the right communication in the consult, the recommendations, and the paperwork is super simple, and it doesn't feel like a timeshare sale. This is where it takes doctors' most common weaknesses, which is talking about money. Because most likely, if you're like me or most other chiropractors, the ones I work with, you didn't get into chiropractic for the big paycheck. That wasn't your first motivation, or to get the Lamborghini. You got into chiropractic because you truly cared about helping people naturally, and chiropractic got you. Maybe you had a personal experience, maybe something in your family, maybe like me, you just started diving into it and talking to chiropractors and visiting practices, and the philosophy was just so beautiful. And it was like, this is what I would love to empower people with. And the money wasn't first. But then you realize, if you're a practice owner, you're a business owner, and people aren't just, it's not like the emergency room. It's not like the orthopedist where insurance takes care of everything, or they see the bill and they just figure out, well, how do I got to pay for this somehow? It's like, you realize it's still a choice, it's still an elective, and everything goes out the window. Now, when you switch the paradigm, instead of trying to educate, sell, close, or convince patients that chiropractic is worth it, but instead you switch the paradigm, the communication, and your headspace to getting back to their life is worth your fee. It actually becomes your greatest strength, because you actually care about people getting back to their life. You're not just dispensing a drug and saying, check back in a year. Hopefully the blood pressure is still good. You're doing what you're doing, whatever technique you do, whatever your philosophy, to help people get back to their life. And you want to go deep down in the hole in chiropractic philosophy for more life to flow through a patient's body. More life force, more innate, more nerve flow, whatever you categorize it as. The purpose of chiropractic is more life flowing through the body, which allows people to live happier, healthier lives and get back to what they love doing. When that's your mindset, you will get paid far easier for your care. And I've already said it, but you know what patients are really, really paying you for? It's not your time. It's not your expertise. It's not a number of visits. It's not your modalities. Write this down. It's the expectation of results and the difference it will make in their life. And I underlined expectation to fully impart, you do not need to guarantee results. Oftentimes, if you do, it causes more skepticism, especially from an all natural therapy or modality. And especially when you anchor to, which you learn how to find this in the 6-question consult, you anchor to it in the recommendations conversation. When you anchor to the difference it makes in that person's life, like being able to walk up and down the stairs without fear of falling down the stairs, being able to pick up their grandchild, being able to dance at their daughter's wedding, being able to watch Sunday football in pain-free and not be in pain on the couch. Like, it doesn't have to be some grandiose achievement of running a marathon. You find out what's important in that person's life. And when you, with honesty, clarity, and leadership, show them a pathway to get there that's not convoluted, not complicated, not super heavy. Super heavy means talking about visit numbers and re-exams and all that. No one needs to know about that. They don't care. You've got savings options. you've got the end result you're going for, and you've got a pathway, that's what will have people pull out their credit card when they thought insurance was going to cover it all or hoped it would just be copays and say, hey, can we start today? And still refer people, even though they weren't expecting to pay more than their copay, but they're happy to, rather than jumping ship and, looking for someone who's got a cheaper first visit. So just think about it from the context of your typical new patients. What are they coming into with? Not the pain, not the condition, not just the headaches, the back pain, the disc issues, but we call it the third essential in patient mastery, like the real issue that they want to get back to in their life. What's really important: sleeping through the night, getting back to their weekends, going to work, doing what they love, getting their life back. And when the conversation is based on that, and sure, you can use your exam to justify that you have confidence and they're going to get results, of course. But when the conversation is getting people back to their life, and not just as a tagline, not just as a slogan, like you actually find out what that is, the change in perception of your value and your care's value is the opposite of when you try to, the traditional chiropractic method of, okay, here's my per visit fee, and then I'm going to recommend 12 visits or 36 visits or whatever number of visits, and then build out this plan. And I got to throw re-exams. And I'm going to justify why the plan is $1,500 or $3,500 or $7,500, whatever it is. And you've got to justify it from the bottom up. That is an uphill battle. That is why so many people say, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse, and you never hear from them again. You don't need to do any of that. Like, literally write that down. If you're explaining, let me just finish this.
You got it. You got it.
You're explaining the cost based on all the itemized fees added up. It causes such resistance, rather than you explain the cost based on them getting back to their life. And most likely your fees aren't anywhere near close to the value of someone being pain-free and doing what they love in their life. So when you start with, this is where you're going to be, this is our expectation, this is our goal, and here's the savings rates for it, and not justifying all these little things added up, everything changes. Yeah, Sam, go for it.
I was just going to say, it seems like such a disconnect to like help somebody define like what it means to get their life back. And it does seem like a platitude at times, which I think that becomes a challenge for, anybody, who is wanting to do something like this. But have you ever, and like, I just kind of wonder what, like, I've been sick. I had strep throat, then COVID, and man, I've got this like cough thing and I'm not feeling my best self. And I was just thinking to myself, okay, this is only very like 2 or 3 weeks, but what if you ask a question like, this is your current condition. We go through the consult. This is your current condition. When was your life not like that? How long ago has it been? Well, 4 years ago, I was healthy. I was this, I was that. Well, describe to me what your life was like there. How was this? How was that? Is that one of those things where you're saying, hey, let's get you, Mr. Patient or Mrs. Patient, to go back to a moment when reality was like this. And if we could just get back to that, then that would be something that they can like internalize. Is that like an exercise that is effective at all?
That's one way to probably do it. That's not exactly part of the protocol. We're having them go into the future of when they don't have the pain, the condition, and when it's either resolved or dramatically better. But that's certainly one way to do it, is looking in the past of when you didn't have that. Yeah. I mean, it's 2 angles for the same end result, which is, how do you want your life to be? Clearly not incapacitated, inability, in pain.
You ever look at like I have a YouTube channel, a different YouTube channel where I've got like family videos, and I'll look at things that we're doing on those family videos and be like, oh man, yeah, that like I was, like an awesome shape, breathing like a champ, doing everything awesome. How cool would it be to be right back there? Anyway, I don't want to derail this, but as we were talking about this, I'm like, again, this is one of those things where I hope that people don't get lost in the simplicity, because while the words on the page seem simple, the execution and being able to consistently deliver and change the way you think, so this is what you do, is everything. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No. Hey, if you've been to any of my pages, you've probably seen Rena Nosy speak, whether it's a quick 2-minute video or a 20-minute video of us dissecting her practice transformation. But here's a great example of a doc, Northern California, single mother of 2 boys, financial head of household, in an expensive part of the country, and 18 years into practice was averaging about 20,000 a month. And for having 2 kids in an expensive part, like that doesn't cut it. However, really great chiropractor and person, doesn't want to come off as selling or needy to her patients, didn't want to have to recommend big plans or packages. We tweaked her pricing and her care offerings because she was doing the sabotage of, let's do a few visits and see how it goes. Now, I say that's a sabotage mainly from the mindset of you're instilling lack of confidence in the patient when you use those words, which is very common for docs who do it on their own. The let's see how it goes. Like, you're being very honest, but just because you're honest doesn't mean you have to say that to a patient, especially if it's going to lower their confidence and trust in you. So we showed her just languaging so she could still recommend the care she wanted to recommend, but not come off as needy, selling, or unleader-like. 10,000 more a month in collections in the very first month using the process, and then took it and ran with it, did her thing, enjoyed, like, who wouldn't want 120,000 more a year without doing really anything else, adding more expense. 2 years later, she sent me this text. We've never been busier. The 10,000 a month I once said I made since utilizing your teaching, it's now 30,000 plus a month more. It's exponential. And then last year, she came back. She's at 94,000 a month. She started at 20,000 a month. She's getting out of more insurance and giving herself 3-day weekends because she's got a model that works. And it truly has transformed her headspace for success and gave her the step-by-step proven process to not have to add in new services, not have to recommend anything you don't believe in, and of course, never feel like a salesperson. But it started from, she realized 18 years into practice, like it's not going to just randomly change on its own. And especially with, let's say, when I talk about recession proof your practice, it doesn't matter what you think about recession or macroeconomic. What matters is what your patients or your public in your area think about it. And if they're going to come in, they've got to meet someone who isn't in that mud pit of gloom and doom and anxiety and stress.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I'll share with you end, but again, some people can't watch the whole thing. If you want one-to-one help growing your practice with an authentic system that works for any technique, any location, if you go to dcgrowthcall.com, you literally have a conversation with one of my coaches to help you from where you are, what's missing to get to where you want to, both what's missing that you're not doing and what you're doing that's probably holding you back and sabotaging. So patient mastery strategy number 2 when it comes to retention. So the first one we just talked about is the absolute difference in what has people choose to pay you is, are you giving people the opportunity to get back to their life and the expected results they want? That's all you need. You don't need to guarantee. Or are you trying to sell your care, your visits, your protocols? And that puts you in the category of people going, I wonder if I can get the same results with less visits somewhere else. I wonder if I can get the same results at a cheaper cost somewhere else. That's what happens when you try to sell chiropractic, your technique, care plan, visit numbers, any of that. It puts you in the competition mode with other providers. When you're speaking to what the patient really cares about and wants, which you asked the right questions in the consult and found it out and packaged your recommendations around it, the person may think, oh, I wasn't expecting it was going to be this amount, but they're not going to be thinking, I wonder if I can go get it someplace cheaper from someone who doesn't care as much as the doctor in front of me. That's not how people think, and that's not how life works at all. So let's talk about retention now. We're going to move from the classic chiropractic paradigm of educating new patients, which, by the way, didn't start in 1895, didn't start until about 80 years later in 1975 when insurance came about. Again, the same time as practice management evolved when insurance came about. So there's something where you got to realize one is dependent on the other if you're going to use those old paradigms. And practice management came about. How do we convince patients to keep coming and come for X number of visits, which in the time insurance covered pretty much everything. So how can we have them come 100 times in a year, not charge the copay because insurance will pay? And that's where educating new patients came about. And you realize that once insurance started declining in the early 2000s and over the past 20 years, the education model, the hour-long recommendations, the spouse has to be at the ROF. You got to come to a lay lecture the first week of care. Docs started realizing, wait, like those things aren't moving the needle. Like those things aren't producing retention and conversions like they did when insurance paid everything. So was it the education or not? It wasn't. And we're going to go from educating patients to leading your new patients to where they want to be. And when you realize that you could reduce 80% of your new patient consult, your recommendations, whatever you're doing education wise, and people will actually follow your recommendations more, it saves you time, it saves you headspace, it saves you energy, and it just feels so much easier. You don't have to feel like a scripted robot. You don't have to have that feeling of you see new patients on the books and want like, oh, I've got to completely change this person's paradigm. Or, waking up and knowing you have recommendations to do and just not feeling like I was there. I was the practice management poster child junkie graduating from Life University. And I woke up thinking like, I don't want to have these day two ROF conversations with people. It doesn't feel good. It's scare tactics. It's heavy handed. It's convincing. Um, but I thought that was the only way because that's the only way I stopped being taught. But times have changed. So here's what I want you to write down next. If you're still trying to get your new patients to agree with, accept, or understand chiropractic, and I mean understand like understanding the anatomy and the physiology of how correcting a subluxation or putting, or your modality, how it changes the body and reduces pain and restores health and function. If you're coming from that angle, it's banging the head against the wall, chiropractic, because people don't need to agree, accept, or understand chiropractic to pay you well and easily for your care and the expectation of getting back to their life and getting their life back. This is what a patient looks like when they're informed of the chiropractic care they need. The plan, the why, the age-old ROF. It's like it's negative, it's exhausting. So when you switch it, again, patients, they don't need to understand, agree with, accept chiropractic. Think about how much of your new patient experience you may be able to just like let go of, like all those posters and charts you were walking them through and all these convincing exam findings. When you realize you don't have to do that, everything switches. So when you make it all about your care in chiropractic, it increases patient confusion and disappearance because they're not coming to you for a new paradigm on health. They're coming to you to get their life back. When you make it all about your patients, which we alluded to, this ties into the first strategy of why people pay, but it's also the same strategy of why people trust you and follow your recommendations. You're going to increase retention and investment. So literally, this is what a couple can look like, even when you're going over finances. After outlining, hey, here's the pathway to get you the results you're looking for. And when I talk finances, write this down. always show people options of how to save rather than, the rates for your care plan or what insurance won't cover. Here's a quick lingo that'll make all the difference in your mind and patient's mind. Oftentimes, if you accept insurance and it pays for a certain amount of the care, but the patient is responsible for the rest. And I'm not talking about copays. I'm talking about like deductibles and all that. When you say insurance covers X and you owe or you're responsible for Y, the second you say insurance covers, you're planting the seed in the patient's mind that the insurance knows what care they should get. Like if you say insurance covers 8 visits or 12 visits, you immediately plant in the patient's mind, well, insurance companies are big and smart and have been around forever. They must know for my condition, I only need 8 visits. So why are you recommending 24 or 26 or 32? And you'll learn this elsewhere, but never, ever, 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 ever tell the patient how many visits are in the package. And you don't have to compliance wise. And there's a whole teaching around that, but you will help so many more people by not talking about numbers of visits. You still have them, but you don't talk about it. And they don't need to know. They don't care either. They won't ask. So when you say cover, you immediately cause the patient to feel like, well, why do I need more than what these enormous companies should know? So change the word cover to contributes. So instead of saying insurance covers 8 visits or $800, you're going to say your insurance contributes. So they're not going to contribute a visit number. You're giving the visits. They contribute a dollar amount out of the plan amount. Very simple. It's a one-word change, but it really shifts in, okay, this is what you can benefit from your insurance company to get your life back, rather than the insurance company knows what you should get and I'm selling a whole bunch more. So your insurance contributes X dollars. So let's just say, it's 8 visits and you know that the insurance company would have paid $60 for those 8 visits. You say insurance contributes $480 to your care. You do that. There's nothing else you have to explain. You don't have to explain the deductible amount, the co-insurance, the copay. Like, even though you may be explaining it 100% correctly and honestly, all you're doing is confusing and overwhelming the patient. Now, I just got off on a little side tangent because I just want to give you quick things that'll make a
I
huge.
like that. I like that. That was really good.
Now, getting back to this paradigm of retention comes from leading. So even just that past example, a lot of chiropractors or their main office manager will go over like all the logistics of why the insurance pays this much and how much, and it just confuses, it overwhelms. And even though you're being 100% accurate, it's like, I need to speak to my husband or I need to call my insurance because this was so confusing. That's another example of educating, explaining, convincing, trying to get the patient to agree with, rather than just leading them. Leading them is, here's the fat. Your insurance contributes this much. Your responsibility is this much. And we've created savings options for you. That's leading. Fewer words than having a spreadsheet and trying to convince the patient, which whenever you're in convincing mode, it comes off like selling. And that's a whole nother paradigm of chiropractic. It's the majority of time why we need patients to agree with and understand and accept chiropractic is because as chiropractors, we don't own it ourselves. When you own a belief or a model or a philosophy, you don't need to convince anyone else, and you don't need anyone else to believe it or not. They can do whatever they want. You own it, what you own. When you need other people to believe and accept what you believe, it's because you need that validation and acceptance because you don't own it enough yourself. That's a huge neediness that emanates from the chiropractic field. You may not know you're doing this, but it's been imparted on you in school, by the seminars you go to, by the leaders in our profession. of getting validation by people becoming chiropractic advocates and lifelong patients and all that. But it puts you into a selly, needy, and repellent relationship. So here's what I'm going to give you some words how to start your consult to convey leadership. So remember, this is the 3-step new patient process. They've got a consult, they got a recommendations, they got a care plan. Right here before the consult. So we're talking about you're meeting the patient for the first time. They've checked in at your front desk. Maybe they've gone into a consult room, and now you're going to walk in to connect with that new patient. Now, of course, you're going to introduce yourself. You may do a couple sentences of what was their referral source, or how long have you lived in the community, like just building rapport, general stuff. You don't just dive right into a consult. Here's what I want you to write down, or you can take a screenshot of the next page, but you're going to start with what I call the leadership statement of how to start every single new patient consult. And this causes you to gain trust and leadership. So again, you've already obviously introduced yourself, shaken their hand, addressed some type of rapport building, the referral source, or how long have you lived in the community, maybe share how long you've been practicing in the community, just basic stuff that eases into let's get the conversation started. Sentence 1. Now, this isn't the 6-question consult because none of these are questions and people get this confused all the time. This is a leadership statement that I'm not big on scripting, but these are just follow these sentences and you'll start your consult on an amazing platform. So 1, this is how today's visit's going to go. Right there, that's leadership. It's not overbearing. It's not aggressive. It's just, okay, we've gotten to know each other. We built rapport. This is how today's visit's going to go. And that patient's immediately going to get into follow the leader mode. Second, I'm going to listen to everything you have to say. First, no doctor does. Everyone knows doctors cut you off and you have 17 seconds. So if you're being honest and you actually do listen to what they have to say, and the more they say, you'll see in the consult and the recommendations is actually more value for you. But immediately that sparks trust from your second sentence. 3, if at any point I feel there's someone better suited for your condition and goals, I'll tell you exactly who that is. No chiropractor has ever said that to them before, let alone any doctor. And because chiropractors have the stigma of we can help everyone of every condition, just get on the conveyor belt, this emphasizes unneediness, which is one of the foundational principles of patient mastery. So the more needy you are, which is what we're instilled in as chiropractors through school and practice management, the more repellent it is. The more unneediness, the more people come to us. Next, if I feel we can help you or I can help you, we can move forward with the exam today. So right there, you're just planting one opportunity. You're only going to get the exam if, based on this conversation, you feel like you can help them. And they've got to qualify. It's not one size fits all. It's not cookie cutter. This isn't, again, a lot of new patients' skepticism and fear of this is going to be a conveyor belt practice. And lastly, give them a quick outline of what the rest of the visit will look like if they get the exam, how it's going to end. So for some chiropractors, you may start with an adjustment or a treatment on the first visit. For some, you may have them come back within a day or two to go over the recommendations, and then you can start with the first treatment. Either way works. We teach how to do it. Either way works. And it is amazing how well it works when you do it all in one visit. But clarity. So nowhere through that initial consult, when you really want a person to feel safe and open up with you, they're thinking, I wonder what's going to happen next. Like, am I getting x-rayed or not? Am I going to have to change into a gown or not? How long am I going to be here? What else are we going to it's obvious to you, but to a new patient, they have no idea what goes on in a chiropractor's office. So give them a quick 20-second, this is how it's going to go. This is how long it's going to be. And this is what's going to happen at the end. You'll put people at ease. Right from there, you go into the 6-question patient mastery consult. Question 1, I'll just give it to you right now. You're probably doing it to a derivation already, is now I know this is what you're going to say to them. I know you filled out paperwork and you explained what's going on. I want you to pretend like I haven't read it yet. And I want you to just tell me from scratch, why are you looking to receive care? And let them speak. And now there's a way to listen and to hear what they're saying that with the rest of the questions repurposed in the recommendations will have you be the go-to chiropractor and literally have you get referrals just from the consult, let alone when you start getting people better without asking, without harping on them for referrals. And it's elegant, it's professional, it's beautiful, and it just feels great. So take a screenshot of this, make sure you've written it down. Say this pretty much verbatim after introducing yourself, before you dive into your actual consult, and you will start off with trust and leadership right away. And truly, just you've got to own this. Patients want and need to be led by you. They're coming in with a health concern. They want a trusted leader who's clear and confident, not who's using scare tactics, not who's using sales tactics, trusted, confident, clear. They don't want to be convinced. They don't want to be sold or closed, and they don't want to be educated. And that actually overwhelms them until their symptoms start changing. That's when you can start educating people because one, you've proved what you do works, like they're feeling better. That's the first thing. All the education before it goes in one ear and out the other. So once you proved what you do works or is working, they're more open to hear why. But two is they're not in sympathetic mode anymore. They're not in pain. They're not in fear. They're not in anxiety. It's like, oh, this is working. I'm getting better. So their logical mind can open up. One of my favorite chiropractors, Dr. Winnie Wong, she's obviously from China or Asia, but she's Chinese, practicing in Australia. And when she started in practice, like no one came more than 3 visits, even though she was recommending more, earning very little as a locum associate because she was young, English as a second language, just out of school, little confidence, and seeing a lot of Australia like farmer men who just didn't trust her and didn't give her time of day. She learned the patient mastery process as an associate while she was locuming in a practice. She tripled the volume of that practice. So went from about 75 visits a week to like 220. The doc took her out of one practice, put her in another. He's like, I want you to do that in another one of my practices. She did it in the other practice. At that point, she realized, okay, I think I could do this on my own. But she had all the same fears of where am I going to get new patients? What do I charge? And am I going to be successful? So we addressed each one of those in patient mastery. She started her own practice. She hit 100 visits a week within 8 weeks. That may not seem impressive to you. She got so busy, she hired an associate in her second year. Literally within 16 months from scratch, she has one of the most successful DC practices in the world, not just in Australia, in the world. I'm not going to share numbers because she doesn't like bragging or being put on a pedestal, but in the top 1% of all chiropractic practices and profits, collections, and a kick-ass practice. By the end of her second year, she hired her second associate, 3-day weekends, more vacations, and now teaches literally every single week inside Patient Mastery to empower more docs to do the same and just follow the process. All right, last strategy. So we talked the headspace change for actually getting people to pay, the headspace and communication change for getting people to follow your recommendations. You don't have to educate. You just need to lead. That's what people want. That's what they're craving. Now, for headspace transformation, to go from hoping for success, like, oh, I've been in practice 5 years or 12 years, and it's pretty much been the same for the last 5 years, but hopefully next year will be different. Well, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting the same results, or life is going to give you the results it gives. And if we are heading into more of a recession and more of the general public is scared and then you're scared, you're not going to keep getting those same results. I promise you that. So going from hoping for success to creating your success with certainty. So like I said, if you're expecting to do the same things and next month or next year will magically change because you think you just have more exposure in your community, or you're hoping a silver bullet will dramatically change everything, or insurance will suddenly start getting so much better, or who knows. That's not a recipe for making tangible changes in your career. So we all know foundational success principles like discipline, commitment, integrity, purpose, vision, goal setting, like all of those have value. However, I guarantee you're either doing a portion of those or all of those, yet you still feel stuck at that under 40,000 a month stereotypical chiropractor stuck point. And if you were making 15 to 20,000 more a month, which is mainly all profits, that would make a dramatic difference for your life. So outside of all of the success principles that you've ever heard about, acted on, or are committed to, what I've come to see over years of coaching chiropractors and non-chiropractors is another factor that moves the needle. That's what I wrote a book on. That's what Sam held up in front of you. It's gifted on my website. You can read it within an hour and a half and start using the process. But here is the difference. The number one reason I see keeping you and anyone else stuck from having your most successful practice, especially in our profession, because we get a lot of junk from our chiropractic profession that isn't true. Again, the schooling, the leadership, all of that. And instead of just telling you, I'm going to ask you a question that's going to have it open up in your mind. So I want you to ask yourself this question to yourself. Do you believe you truly deserve the practice success you want? Yes or no? What pops into your mind? And a nothing is no. Do you believe you truly deserve the practice success you want? Unlike people going out and being PTs or orthopedists or accountants or lawyers or name your profession, our profession has instilled an undeserving belief. We feel like we're the redheaded stepchild of medicine. You know, most likely your parents questioned, just like mine, when I told my mom I'm going to be a chiropractor for the next 2 years, every week and month. Are you sure you don't want to be an MD? How come not a medical doctor? It's a disease in our profession, undeserving beliefs. When you flip the switch from undeserving to deserving, and there's a process that you could do from the comfort of your own home in a chair by yourself, all in your head, which I teach in the book, when you flip the switch from undeserving to deserving, and you pile that on top of other success principles like purpose and commitment and integrity, you will see life start changing. Like all the serendipities, the synchronicities, what used to work but felt like you were banging your head against a wall. Now you might be doing the same exact thing and the path unfolds. Or you might realize, why am I still doing that? It doesn't work. And you move on to something that does work. It's going to be unique for your process. But this headspace shift, when you go from undeserving the lifestyle you want, the practice busyness you want, the practice success you want, to truly believing you deserve it. And yeah, I don't know who you are listening to this right now, but I have no doubt if you've made it this far, you genuinely care about being a great chiropractor, you genuinely care about helping the people you see, and you genuinely want to be more of a pillar in your community. And that's not the case for every business owner or chiropractor, but inherently, no one stamped you on your forehead when you came out of school or the womb that you're undeserving of practice success. And inherently, when you're doing really good work, helping people get back to their life, you deserve having a great life yourself, your family, your lifestyle, financial freedom, and not stress. If you go to my website, you can download an e-copy of this. There's an Audible version if you love hearing my voice. And there's obviously a physical copy that Sam held up. But for some people, just realizing this starts moving the needle. Just realizing where you can honestly admit to yourself, because if you're human, you've got undeserving beliefs. I still do. And just like my health or my finances, I'm always putting not pressure, focus and improvement on it. It's not something you flip once and you're perfect the rest of your life. This is real skill and muscle building. And I've had undeserving beliefs when it came to practice success when I first graduated, because I was taught to do stuff that didn't feel right. And I didn't think I deserved success if it felt icky. I've had undeserving beliefs when it came to money, hearing my dad say when I was young that we don't have any money anymore. Like, what do you think that plants in a 5-year-old? I've had undeserving beliefs when it comes to lifelong romantic relationships and partnership. I'm human just like you. And when you apply this process, we call it the deserving process, you will see the needle shift. um, Undeserving beliefs cause you to set goals, which is the mansion you're trying to build on top of a swamp. Doesn't matter how great the architects, how much money you pour into it. Undeserving beliefs are the foundation. You can have the best goals, the best pathway, but if it's on top of undeserving beliefs, that mansion isn't going to take. And two, when you have undeserving beliefs, you can't really see your true vision. You've got the blinders on of what's really possible for you in your life when you don't believe you deserve the happiness, the success, the freedom, the practice you want. Last doc, because again, one of my favorite docs, Sean Mahoney in Vermont, 34 years in practice 2 years ago, owns 2 successful practices. He's done it all already, but he's feeling burnt out and his collections were stuck, even though they were over that 40,000 a month mark where most chiropractors get stuck. He's a go-getter. He's successful. He spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over a career on personal and practice growth. What we did is we changed his recommendations, strengthened his deserving belief for his collections. And in his first year of doing the patient mastery process, 25,000 more in collections a month increase, paid off his home mortgage in full. That was during COVID, 2020. And in year 3, averaging 40,000 more a month collections. Like, imagine for your specific life what that would do in terms of knocking out the bad, fueling the good, and giving your family the lifestyle you deserve. There's 4 trajectories. I'll be done in 2 minutes. Sam, thanks for
you bet. I love this.
There's 4 trajectories. The main point of this graph is showing you there's good. I mean, there's ideal, there's good, there's poor, there's disaster. You know which line you're on. The most important thing is realizing staying the same is not even an option. If you've been stuck at 25,000 a month collections for the past 5 years, you may think you're on this line, but no. Business expenses go up, life expenses go up, and you want, because you're human and you deserve it, to have a better quality of life. So if your collections are stuck, you're on this line. You get the same collections, but you get less for it. Our whole goal in patient mastery is getting you on this trajectory for your practice. For your practice, it may be 40,000 a month is amazing. For your practice, you may be at 100,000 and you want to be at 200,000 a month. Like, everyone's different. That's okay. This isn't a cookie cutter practice model. You got to realize as time goes on, since nothing stays constant, you're either growing or declining, getting better or contracting. Every year you get further away, depending on what line you're on, especially if you're below black. So our focus is you jump to the green line and you hit your 3-year vision in the next 12 to 15 months. Why? Because we see it happen so often when you're surrounded by amazing colleagues, amazing coaches, a proven process that you just follow. You don't have to do every step, and the needle moves. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. You absolutely deserve having the life and practice you desire. Again, you are helping people get back to their life energetically, karmically, law of exchange. You deserve to have a great life yourself. You help more patients get back to their life. You deserve for your family to have a great life yourself. So I will leave you with, and of course, financial freedom, whatever that looks like for you. More vacations, no student loan debts, no problem sending the kids to college, retirement, depends on where you are in your career, but I hear too many good chiropractors not know when they'll be able to legitimately retire because of the financial situation. And that's not right. Our gift to help you, no matter where you are on this trajectory, recession proof your practice, but by owning the foundations and the fundamentals and the principles of success, which never change no matter what's happening, no matter if it's COVID or recession, and become the go-to Chiro one-to-one growth plan. If you go to dcgrowthcall.com, answer a few questions so we can connect you to the right coach. Because if you're at 15,000 a month, we're going to connect you with someone different than if you're at 100,000 a month, because you're at a different stage and you need different things. Pick a time, get your one-to-one growth plan. If you want to know more about patient mastery at the end of that, we will absolutely tell you. It's not a sales call. It's not a pitch. We're literally here to point out what's missing, how to go from where you are to where you want to get to, and helping more of our profession and more of our colleagues win and be surrounded by a group of amazing colleagues who are there to support you. So thank you for all you do as an awesome chiropractor. And Sam, thank you for hosting this and contributing to so much of the profession.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you. It was really awesome. I even took some notes for myself here. And even I'm going to cut this a little bit, because there was one moment at 2:54 my time where there was just like this one sentence. I was like, "Ooh, if you listen to that one sentence, you could make so much more money."
Yes, send me the clip. I'll share it too.
Whatever. Yeah, no, I will send you that clip. It's gonna be the intro cut. And I was just like, oh, that's so good. So yeah, thanks for doing this. dcgrowthcall.com if you want to talk with Josh's colleagues and really kind of start figuring some of this stuff out. And I will just layer on at the very end. I wish that more people would. I think there's so many people that look at a person like Josh and they hear what he says and they're like, well, if Josh says it, then I'll just say it without doing it. Okay. So meaning it's one thing for these terms, like get your headspace right, like use your language in these proper ways. It's one thing for Josh to say it. It's another thing. It seems like this other, these bad characters, without getting too weird, who repeat it. And because they repeat it, it loses its meaning. But now back at its core, at its source, coming from a person who does this, who really helps people implement these things. The only thing I would say at the very end of this is please, 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 please don't discount some of the concepts in here as, oh, I've heard things like that before. Because maybe you've heard words clumped together like that before, but you haven't heard the meaning before. All right. And if you're not connecting the dots, then at least get on a call. Yeah. And have the dots connected for you. Because I'll tell you this, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. And I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like to be homeless, not like on the street homeless, but having to move back in with my parents, because that happens to people when they take risk. I know what those things are like. I know what it's like to be financially, financially destitute in a way to where, yes, I'd love to think so much about what you're talking about, but I can't not look at my bank account and be terrified. So I understand all of that. And because I was able to crawl out of that and find my way, and then, over time, create a career that is luckily, at a level where I would say, I don't care what other people say about their success. For me, I feel like my success is exactly where I want it to be. So as a person who's gone through the actual trials and tribulations of those things, the only thing I say, just don't discount anything you've heard. Okay. Also, just because you've heard things like mindset, you've heard things like, and I don't know, maybe I'm very sensitive to this only because I know who says the mindset things. And there's two ways to say it. The people who don't know it and haven't done it and are just talking, they can't actually do it. And then there's people like you. So, Josh, thanks for coming. And we really appreciate it. We'll get this video uploaded for replay, and then, share share the goal that you've been able to share with everyone else here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Thank you again for what you do. And for you docs watching, thank you for all you do.
All right.
RP.
Thanks, buddy. See you guys.